Hello class, I'm Bryce Reed and this is my informative speech. Do you ever find yourself listening to music and something about a particular song or a particular artist just is so striking to you that you get goosebumps? You love the song and it just captivates you, and something about the wording or the beat just covers your body in this feeling that you can't explain. The reason I bring this up is because there's one artist that always does this for me. That's Bob Dylan. The reason being, to start, my father was a huge fan. So much so they named my brother Dylan after Bob Dylan. Due to this large influence in my life, I've grown up loving Bob Dylan and have connected his music with a lot of different milestones in my life. And I continue to every day. Today I want to go through several different stages in his life. So beginning with his early life, his career, and his rise as a folk star, as well as his achievements and his everlasting influence on the music culture. To begin, I'd like to take you to the very beginning. It was May 24th, 1941, and Robert Allen Zimmerman was born in Duluth, Minnesota. By the age of 6, he began learning different instruments such as the harmonica and the guitar, and all growing up, he had large influences of Elvis and Little Richard. By the high school years, he was fronting a band called the Golden Chords with several of his friends. Then, in 1959, he enrolled at the University of Minnesota, where he began playing at several coffee shops and bars under the name Bob Dylan. This is where the name started, and he actually got the name from his favorite TV show, which is an old television show called The Gunsmokers. After this, he only lasted about 3 semesters at school, and after that, he moved to New York City. It was in New York City in 1961 where he began meeting up with the longtime idol of his, Woody Guthrie. At the same time, he was gaining much attention in the Greenwich Village folk rock community, and he was starting to meet several musicians, which led him on his rise to stardom. Around this time, he actually signed to Columbia Records. This was huge because Columbia Records, as you might know, is a huge record company even today. He released 2 songs, Talking New York and Song to Woody. These were the only 2 songs released at the time, but they unveiled his poetic lyricism and really unveiled his work to the world for the first time. The next few years were huge for him. He released The Freewheeling Bob Dylan and The Times They Are Changing. In these albums, there's a few songs that really stuck out to me. Blowing in the Wind, this song had great lyricism, really paints a picture in your mind, and really showed the world these beautiful pictures he could paint with his words. Also, he released A Hard Rains Are Gonna Fall and Masters of War. These were protest songs in a way, and kind of for the first time introduced Bob Dylan as a protest singer at the time, during the protest movement. This was a time when war was very much alive in our country, and many people were butting heads at the idea of it. These protest songs and this movement led him to meeting up with Joan Baez. They were longtime, friends, and they were romantic for a period. They produced music together. They had great influences on each other's careers, and all in all, very beneficial influences. And even after the relationship, they continued to work together in further projects. It was 1965 when he married ex-model Sarah Lowndes. The 2 of them had 4 children, one of which being Jacob Dylan, who later fronted the band The Wallflowers, who is still popular today. Around the same time, he played at the Newport Folk Festival. Now, this was a big event because the entire fan base completely booed Bob Dylan. This was very saddening for him. It really set him back and made him rethink what he was doing, because his fans weren't liking what he was doing to his music. But as a very progressive person, he continued to change and do what he wanted, which I loved, of course. Shortly after, in his anger for the way his fans treated him, and just to come back strong, he released Like a Rolling Stone. This was his first hit as a new artist, and at the time was revered as a spectacular song. Around this time, he also produced and released Highway 61 Revisited and Blonde on Blonde, which are two of my personal favorites. In April 1966, he released the song Rainy Day Woman, number 12 and number 35. This was his first song to reach the top of the Billboard charts, reaching over tens of millions of records sold, as well at this time, Bob Dylan had several songs out there being covered by over 150 different artists, which just goes to show his popularity and how much it was growing at the time. Shortly after this release of the release of that song, he suffered a motorcycle accident. This set him back for about 9 months, and he was stuck in his house. He secluded himself from everything, and came back strong with the release of Nashville Skyline, which was his way of taking where he morphed country music and his folk rock together, so it had a real country twang, but produced beautiful songs such as Lay Lady Lay and Girl from the North Country, which he also had guest singers such as Johnny Cash in these songs. After the 60s, the 70s weren't the best for him, but he still continued to work and produce tons of music with the likes of George Harrison and the Grateful Dead. In 1977, he divorced his wife Sarah, and she took custody of all the children. Around 1979, Bob Dylan announced himself as being a born-again Christian, and shortly after released 3 major albums, Saved, Shot of Love, and Slow Train Comin', which granted him his first ever Grammy. In these 3 albums, he really displayed his new religious background and his born-again Christianity. After that, it was the beginning of the 1980s, and he visited Israel. It was here that he noticed the turmoil going on in the different countries and the government relations between Israel, Palestine, and the other Arab nations. When he came back, he released the song Neighborhood Bully. This was a song that, metaphorically in a way, poked at the situation going on in the Middle East and the turmoil going on between the two governments, or the several governments that are all involved. Shortly after this, he released Biograph, which was a 5-album LP with tons of new music that was never released throughout the years. This was in 1985 and was a huge milestone in his career in a way, because it kind of gave people a new perspective on his career as a whole. Then, shortly after this, he married once backup singer Carolyn Dennis, and the two of them went on to have a baby girl. Around the same time, he was also touring with Tom Petty and Grateful Dead and produced a well-known album called Dylan and the Dead. This was a live album with several of Dylan's songs, with the duet of Jerry Garcia and Bob Dylan singing in them all. He continued to tour as well throughout the 80s and the 90s and even today, and I have been lucky to actually see him perform twice, so that has been very cool. He's not as good as he used to be, of course, but it's still amazing to see an idol of mine, a musical icon like that. So, over his extensive career, as you can tell, he's seen a lot, he's been through a lot, and he's done a ton. He has many achievements and many awards, and I'd like to name just a few of them. In 1989, he was he's inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. 1991, he was given the Lifetime Achievement Award for his prolific music and his beautiful poetic lyricism. 1997, he performed for Pope John Paul II in Bologna, Italy, and was later granted the Kennedy Center Lifetime Award. It was then in 1998 where he was granted 3 Grammys for his album Time of the Mind. This led to the release of the Bootleg Series No. 4, Volume 4, Live 1966, the Royal Albert Hall Concerts. This was huge and a spectacular release for his career, and was seen with great joy by his fans. Everyone loved it at the time. In 2000, he won the Pulitzer Prize for the song Things Have Changed, which was his first Oscar, and also he received another Grammy for this song as well. In 2012, he won the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest honor that any human can get that isn't in forces or just a civilian honor. And then in 2016, just a few days ago, he received the Nobel Prize in Literature for his poetic ability and his way to bring music out of music and more into the literature literature side of things. So all in all, Bob Dylan has a huge influence on me, and I'm sure tons of you out there. He has produced amazing work throughout his entire career, and he will forever go down as one of the biggest icons in folk rock history as well as rock and roll history. I hope you all enjoyed this speech. I hope you all got a lot out of this speech, and I really hope I didn't bore you too much. But thank you so much for listening, and I hope you all have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.